We watch anime.
We watch anime. So yeah, Zenoba cannot use magic well enough to make the figurines, and so I don't remember who suggests it initially. It's probably
It's
is it Fitz? Okay, so Fitz just goes, "Why don't you just like go to a slave market? You know, that
this
guy's rich."
fucking show sucks.
All right, I think I've done my talking. I'm just gonna sit here for about an hour. I think now.
I can't believe I let myself get tricked into watching Mushoku Tensei.
Yeah, me neither. I told you we shouldn't.
It was blinded by the views.
Blinded by the views.
Look, this show when it first came out, I regarded as like just another trash isekai, bunch of dumb, perverted garbage, doesn't really make any sense, bad dramatic pacing. Hated the first 7 episodes back when I watched them for content. Over the years, this show was talked up to high heaven. It was put on this pedestal, treated like this was the best isekai. Somehow, even though like 7 shows nearly identical to this come out every season.
I saw someone say something
This
to
is
the
the
effect
one.
of, there's too many isekais. We should really just like focus on original stories. But Mushoku Tensei is okay. No. Slime is the only good isekai I've ever seen.
There's
Even
a few
that
good
gets
ones.
tiring.
There's a few good ones. Slime is definitely one of the ones that took influence from Mushoku Tensei, and this is a big thing I need to get out of the way right now, because there's going to be people who love this show, who are going to see this podcast totally in a void. I have videos about Mushoku Tensei going back to 2022, I think? No, 2021. Maybe it was early last year. I don't remember. I have these videos where I talked about what I think makes the show good, what I think makes it popular, and also how influential the original work really is. Because a lot of people regard Mushoku Tensei as like the original. Like it was one of the first isekai, one of the first rebirth isekai. And that
Armored
is...
Core 6 is better than anal cool sex.
No,
Thank
it's
you
not.
at Skinny Tuna for
Can't
that
be
tweet.
true. Mushoku Tensei was earlier. People have a misconception because of the fact that the anime is newer and the book is older, and so when people are told, "Oh, the book came out like 8 years ago," then they think, "Oh, it's older than all these isekai. It's older than the trends." But it's not older than isekai or older than the trends. If you and I broke it down in my video, yes, Mushoku Tensei is very influential, and yes, a lot of stories that were directly influenced by it were adapted to anime first, and that makes it feel more trite than it might have had it, come out first. The funny thing is that most of the people who will like put up that defense did not read Mushoku Tensei first. They are just excusing the fact that they like it by saying, "Oh, well, you can't say that this stuff is tropey because it invented those tropes." Well, even if that were true, it wouldn't make it any less tropey. It just means that it did it first. But like, first of all, if I don't like the tropes, I wouldn't have liked them the first time I saw them. I wouldn't have if this show literally invented everything it was doing, it would be just as bad as if it were, if all of this was copied and trite and like stuff that I've seen elsewhere. It's not just because I've seen all the shows that are influenced by this that I think it is incredibly fucking trite and cliche.
I haven't even seen all of the shows that are based on this. I think it's just a dog shit show. And I had even come around on the first season of it, but then it just really fumbled. Like, it's just
falling
boring.
the fuck apart.
Someone had said, I don't know if it was our Discord or wherever, but you told me about this. Someone said it's going to get a lot more slice of life from here on out.
Yeah.
That is the worst possible direction
Yeah.
this could be heading.
Well, that's the thing. The show started off slice of lifey. It started off with like 8 episodes of the main character just kind of growing up, coping with his, sexual malfunction, I guess, and his inability to go outside, his hikikomori nature, like all these problems he had in his past life that he's trying to work through and become a better person now that he's in a new world. And initially I didn't enjoy the show because I didn't like the character. I didn't want to have to see this character's story. I don't care about him becoming a better person or whatever. The story is not interesting. In like episode 9 of season 1, Rudius and Eris like get thrown off across the globe, and it becomes an action-adventure show where they meet Rugierd, the green-haired badass dude with a spear.
Who I had forgotten existed until the next episode.
Could have easily forgotten he existed because he hasn't showed up at all in this season, but he was by far the best part of the show. Like, to me, if you were to say, like, what made Mushoku Tensei ever good, it was introducing Rugierd, introducing the conflicts that he was having with Rudius, over morals and like just the different outlooks they had on the world they were inhabiting, and the fact that it was like a serial adventure series where both Rudius and her name was Eris, right?
Yeah.
They were kind of like growing together, and they had some cute moments, and like I don't know, I didn't love season 2. The show to me has at best ever been a light 7. Like that's the height of the show, has been like a light 7. But it was fine. It was watchable, it had stuff going on, and like when you got later into season 2 and you have that whole scene where basically Rudius just gets fucking murked by the dragon god, or a guy working for the dragon god or something, and then you find out that like the human god is in this conflict with these other gods, and it feels like it's opening up this like,
and then
big,
we
epic
didn't
story.
hear anything about it. I had completely forgotten that happened too. This show and manga suck. Yeah. I know where this story is going, and I would spoil it if all of you Mushoku Tensei fanboys weren't the worst people on Earth, and I had to hear a bunch of shit about it.
Well, most of them probably know the spoilers anyways, because they've read the fucking novels.
Yeah, but, like, the 5 people that don't are gonna go, well, you really shouldn't talk about spoilers without saying you're talking about spoilers.
Sure.
Mushoku Tensei is the worst show. It's
very
not good.
Bad. It's very bad, especially this season has just been unrelenting. And this is exactly the same experience I had with ReZero, where like I watched that show in 2015.
Oh, Eminem said, "Spoil it, bird. We don't care." Hell yeah. Okay, right. So this show is going to go towards Rudius.
One person's permission was all it was.
Well, Eminem is he's a real one. This show. They're a real one. Whatever. This show, I don't know how necessarily it gets there, but in the next episode it will be hinted at, goes to Rudius starting and running a religion and being married to Eris, Shilfi, and Rakshi all at the same time, and if I remember correctly, they are the 3 gods of his religion. It is a little alluded to in the next episode when Rakshi is referred to, or he refers to Rakshi as like the goddess of fertility or something, but like holy fucking shit, dude. This I think the biggest reason I hate this show so much, and it's not uncommon in anime necessarily, but this show does it so badly. This show is just a power fantasy for the person making it. Like it's just what he wishes his life was like.
Yeah.
And it like stop making manga and go get 3 wives. Like you can't do both. You can get 3 wives in the real world if you try hard enough.
Want to watch it more. I mean, I will say
that is how I felt about it too.
It having, if he really marries 3 women, that does sound like the best thing about the story.
It is literally, yeah. No, it is a positive for me. It's great.
Yeah,
like
but the road we're taking to get there is just
fucking boring.
God,
I'm
awful.
glad they time skipped us a little bit, so he's kind of an adult-ish now, but not really, and he's still like. Is he going to have the 35-year-old voice in his head the whole time, or is he going to get, like, a regular voice eventually?
This show has really, like, again, this was an action-adventure show for all of Season 2, and the first 4 episodes of Season, or, I keep calling it Season 2, Cour 2, the fucking autistics who love this show.
Hey,
I'm sorry.
Be nice to the autistics.
I love autistic people, but the ones who like this show, who are like, I said Season 3 recently, and someone was like, what do you mean Season 3?
Real quick.
This is Season 2. I'm like, what do you think I mean?
Real quick, just because someone said the religion thing is just Roxy, it's not. The goddess of war is Eris, the goddess of wisdom is Roxy, and the goddess of love is Sylphie. The divine artifacts of this religion are Roxy's panties, a wooden sword that Eris had, and stained bed sheets from the first time Sylphie had sex. Please don't try to correct me on spoilers if you have not spoiled this show for yourself.
the God, I'm trying to figure out where to start.
How would you guys feel if we dropped this show after this season? I'm just going to float that out there because it's what I would like to do. I understand that it's fun to talk about.
I don't know if I can continue this show after this season, unless people really want to hear me scream about it. Because that's the thing. Like, most anime like this, I would have dropped a long time ago. Do I think this is the worst anime that exists?
No.
Obviously not. But every once in a while, when a show that's really bad is popular enough, I feel like I have to figure out what's going on here. Like, what is special about this? Is it actually worth watching? And often the answer is no. I mentioned ReZero earlier, and like that was a show where initially I really didn't like the first season. Then I rewatched it. I came around on it because I was really trying to like appreciate what's good about it. And then the second season came out, and it just became insufferable, and it was the hardest thing to watch. And this show has done the exact same thing. The plot has ground to a total halt. It feels like, with both of those stories, it feels like initially the author was trying to create like something kind of tight and dramatic, and then at some point they realized they wanted the story to go on for a really long time, and so they were just going to like settle into nothing, like just have characters sitting around trading niceties, doing dumb little comedy sketches. Like, the show is turning into Konosuba, but it's not funny. So it's just a train wreck. It's just so fucking boring and hard to watch, and everything that happens is insipid and gross and weird and just like, yeah, the show is an escapist power fantasy, but it doesn't give me anything I want. Like, nothing. If it's an escapist power fantasy, why is it also about trying to fix your erectile dysfunction? If it's an escapist power fantasy, why is it also about being like on the road to recovery from having been a bad person? But like the show's idea of recovery is bad in and of it's like you can't have a show where the theme is I'm going to be a good person, and then from an author who doesn't know what a good person would do. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
This whole episode is about Rudius hiring a child slave.
Hiring?
Sorry.
That's not how it
Buying.
works.
This whole episode is about Rudius buying a child slave to help teach figure making magic to a guy that won't stop clinging to him. And so is the escapist fantasy that you get to own a lolly slave? Beast? Dwarf?
She's a
dwarf
dwarf.
girl? Little dwarf lolly slave?
This show's not good.
So there's been a lot of talk about the themes of slavery in isekai anime. Because obviously slavery has been a thing for a lot of human history. A lot of these things are historical based on some... They're trying to be like Middle Ages or whatever. So some of them try to be a little gritty, a little realistic, throw a little slavery in there, you know? The Rising of the Shield Hero is the first story I think of when I think of the main character buys a slave in an isekai fantasy. That light novel series started like less than a year after Mushoku Tensei. I have almost no doubt in my mind that the slave purchasing in this show was inspired by that one. Because it happens really early into Shield Hero. It happens a decent amount into Mushoku Tensei. I'm fairly certain Shield Hero would have been out by the time the author got to this point in the story. It feels very bandwagony because this show has never even fucking mentioned slaves until this point. It's never come up. We haven't seen slaves. Nobody's owned a slave. We never had a slave character show up. Maybe it's come up. Maybe Ghislaine was a slave or something at some point. I can't.
No.
I don't think slavery's ever been brought up.
No, it has. The when he goes to Eris's house, they have all the dog people.
They have dog people slaves.
Yeah, they have beast men, or, beast girls.
They explicitly said they were slaves and
Yes.
not servants?
Yes, they
Okay.
did.
So there have been slaves.
Wow, this show,
It just never came up, like, as a part of the, like,
because
theming.
because I was corrected incorrectly about
Yeah.
where this show goes.
Yeah.
I've now completely spoiled it for myself, full on.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way I did when I read all of the spoilers of Oshinoko, which are, wow, this seems really cool and a story I would totally be interested in, and I'm sure it's going to be handled terribly.
Yeah. Execution is everything. The Beastmen children were also trafficked in Core 2. I do remember the trafficking.
It is
I do remember
strangely
that.
rare and a relief when an isekai fantasy protagonist actually frees the slave instead of participating in the trade. He's literally participating in the slave trade in this.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a defense of Rudius, but like,
No, I don't think so.
Sure, I've seen this defense a couple times. Like, well, he talks about how he could just kill her, and that would be better for her, and that makes him a good person.
We'll get into that.
And
The,
it's
the defense of the people who defend this, I haven't even gotten to that. The people who defend this are fucking insane. But I have to explain why it's bad. I think first for the people who don't understand. Oh my god, we're going to be covering Vinland Saga on the We Read Manga podcast, and Vinland Saga is very heavily about the theme of slavery and freedom, about how
Zero Suit Game, he thought about killing her. Yes, there's like a 2-minute
Oh my
scene
God, we'll
where
get
he's
there.
just monologuing about how, well, even if I don't buy her, she looks so depressed, and I could just kill her to take her out of her slavery. 'cause
thought
I
about
can't just
killing
free
you
her.
today. Premeditated murder.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in Vinland Saga, in like the second or third chapter, the main character's dad finds an escaped slave dying in the snow who is just desperately trying to get away. And the main character's dad buys this slave off of the guy who owns him, who's a real douchebag who thinks that, like, chains are the only thing that brings out a man's true potential. It's just like an evil asshole. The dad buys the dying slave off of this man just so that he can die free. Now that is an incredible show of character. That's a character that you go, wow, what an amazing guy. He cares so much about human life and freedom that even though he knew this guy was going to die, he still gave up like 6 goats or whatever to buy him off this dude just to let him be free because he's so against slavery. And you know that this is what the show is going to be about. Like, at its core theme, it's about, like, the desire to live and die free, to get away from the bonds of everything that... So, Rising of the Shield Hero. In that show, the main character shows up in an alternate world and immediately gets falsely accused of rape, and basically there's a conspiracy against him by everybody in the kingdom. And in Shield Hero, it's basically made clear explicitly everyone in this world sucks. The main character is just a regular dude trapped in trying to be a hero in this awful world. And he ends up buying a slave kind of not like out of desire to do so. It's more out of necessity, and he feels really bad, and he has a lot of thoughts about the situation. And the girl, it is like a little cute fox girl or whatever who grows up to be 15 in the span of an episode or something so that she can be like dateable. I'm not saying that it's not cringe. It is incredibly cringe, Shield Hero. But it had, at the very least, a sense of solemnity. A sense of slavery's bad. Like it's not a good thing that you can buy a slave. In this show,
It's like a convenience.
It's so fucking casual. It just comes, they're just having a conversation, and they're like, hey, have you considered a slave? And he's like, oh, you know what? That's a pretty good, what if I did go buy a slave? And so here he is just smiling and like, I'll check with Zenoba and we'll visit the slave market during the next month. Let's go. It's going to be a fun time. We're going to go on a little slave buying date. what the fuck is happening? What the fuck is going on? This guy's just a regular Japanese citizen. He's like a 35-year-old Japanese dude. Did he ever raise any moral questions about the slavery in previous? I mean, obviously he was anti-trafficking. I think he would probably prefer there weren't slaves. He just doesn't feel any guilt about going out and buying. He's just excited. He's just excited about it. And like you said, this show is mostly an escapist power fantasy. So this is the fantasy. I get to own Lolly Slave.
He's not even the owner.
Oh, is it technically
Zenobu's slave? Yeah. Pour your misery down. Pour your misery down.
As Amy talks, Annie says, in Vinland Saga, it is like central to the theme of the story that it's about slavery. And this, it's literally just some side plot. It's just thrown in. Hey. And for the dumbest reason. This guy, so let's break it down again. His understudy, who's a guy he doesn't like and doesn't really want around, is bothering him about helping me learn how to make figurines like you. I'm too strong and also I don't know any magic. Rudius, instead of finding someone who knows magic and hiring them to teach him magic, he buys a child slave.
Well, because
so he can teach the slave magic?
Hang on. It is explained Zenoba just doesn't have that much mana. He can't use magic to the effect that is necessary to make the statues. And so, the reason they're getting a slave is because you can get a slave that's young so that you can build up their mana pool early, right, like Rudius did with magic.
Yeah. So,
I hate this show.
The reason that they choose a child is, we can groom a child!
For your misery.
That's the logic. That's the logic. Oh my god. There's so many sound bites from this episode I know I'm going to regret. Look at this expression. This is the slave buying face of Rudius.
I've never bought a slave before, so let's start by browsing. And I hadn't really minded the idea that they were going to buy a slave,
until he shows up with his coat over his arm like he's at the mall.
Yes, and he's having a day of it, and it's like, dude, you know it's bad. You're not even
Here's the slaves, meanwhile, just sad.
Oh my god,
falling apart.
Slavery is saddening. Holy shit!
Dying.
I never would have guessed.
And the whole scene, they're just kind of looking at him pieces of literally pieces of meat. No, Fitz looks at there's two slaves standing there, a man and a woman, and she says I didn't know they got this big. And I don't know if she's referring to the tits or cock, or Rudius takes it that way. He thinks she's talking about sex organs, and he's just thinking haha, but she doesn't know because she's a virgin unlike me, or he doesn't know because he's a virgin unlike me who's totally been laid. And it's just why is this the conversation that's happening in the fucking slave store? Not oh wow, look at these people, this condition really sucks, maybe this whole institution is worth thinking about the negative aspects. These people don't look like they're okay. No. Fitz is thinking, wow, they sure are big.
Do you think that Rudius and Fitz and Zenoba are the kind of people who are only happy when it rains?
They might be.
Are they only happy when it's complicated? Because I don't think they are. I think they prefer it to just be easy. They're not trying to make social changes.
That's true.
Though I would guarantee, I'm not sure exactly everything Rudius does with his religion. They're going to try to make him the best person ever after he starts his religion. Actually, that's interesting. I wonder how influenced Kusomega, not Kusomega, fucking
what
Kamikatsu is by the whole starting a religion thing.
I thought of that too as soon as you mentioned it. I was I bet that's where Kamikatsu got the idea. Here's Sylphie being or I don't know if upset's the word. She's just a little concerned that Rudius has experience that wasn't with her. They're still in the slave market. This is still happening. We need someone magically gifted and naturally skilled with their hands, so let's pick a dwarf.
Naturally skilled
I
with
think
their
you should
hands.
pick a child who doesn't know any magic yet, so you can groom them. Starting to cast by 5 or so does wonders for your mana capacity. Oh, that explains why I had so much mana. So here's him sitting with the slave trader, some turban-wearing guy, because that's not racist.
It's a turban.
Sitting, the one guy in the whole show with a turban is a slave trader. I mean, they're sitting in... the room looks like a dungeon because, it's fantasy, but, this is a used car dealership, or, a phone... This whole scene has the energy of going to replace your iPhone. Going to the Verizon store and being like, I need a new phone. That is the exact level of conversation they are having about purchasing a slave in this episode. A 6-year-old at that. So here she is. They pull her out, and she looks like she wants to die. Sylphie even, heals her a little bit at the start because she's in such bad shape. And as he's talking to her, there's a moment where she doesn't respond to something he asks, and the guy's, about to whip her, and he just kind of, raises a hand, don't do that. I got this. Don't worry. You don't have to beat this child anymore. I've got it. She has the hopeless look of someone who longs for death. The look in her eyes takes me back. My eyes used to be the same way. What the So, it's not enough that he's buying a slave for personal convenience, but now he's projecting onto the slave and thinking of how his struggle is so similar to hers. Yes, my dead in the eyes expression at having been made fun of in high school and then locking myself in a room masturbating to visual novels for the next 20 years is totally just like what this 6-year-old slave that wants to die is experiencing. So fucking relatable. Back then, I wished I was just dead. Maybe she wishes she was just dead. Hey, little girl, do you wish you were just dead? I could just kill you.
I'm only happy when I'm dead.
Isn't he happy he lived, though?
No, I was just being funny.
He didn't think, maybe she, like me, deserves a second chance. He thought, oh, let me put you out of your misery. That's what I would have wanted. But you're here now. So he's like, I'll just kill you if you want. Puts his fucking hand around her neck. Literally going to strangle this child. Maybe he's going to use a magic spell to decapitate her or something. He's got his hand around her neck.
Kinky.
Sure, I could buy her and give her a job right now, but I've been through enough to know that it wouldn't be salvation. So I'm just going to let the 6-year-old choose death.
Well, the 6-year-old, chooses them, ultimately.
She
right?
does not choose death, but why was that an option he was levying to the child? Hey, kid, you want to die? I can help you die. I might as well put her out of her misery.
Boy.
I don't want to die, she says. And he's like, well, it doesn't have to be I want to live. I don't want to die is good enough. Fuck you, dude. Fuck. He's thinking about semantics in this moment of her statement. Oh, man. And here they fed her and she's, she'll I guess she'll be fine. She'll be taken care of now. She'll be all right. So this is where you get into the people who defend the show. well, slavery is a normal concept in the context of the world, so, of course he would buy slaves. He's not from the world.
I mean, he is from the world.
He's not from this world. He should have the morals of a Japanese person. Obviously, his morals are pretty damaged. He's not really a regular member of society, so I'm not too surprised that he's going to take actions that are maybe outside the realm of what would be considered normal.
I have a question. Do you think that Redo of Healer is a better show than this?
I've never seen Redo of Healer.
Me neither.
So I cannot
But
comment.
I've only heard much worse things about it.
Well, and that show just wears its like evil on its sleeve. Like it's a rape revenge fantasy. Like it's not trying to be. This is supposed to be a show about a guy who's getting better. About a guy who, like, in his past life was a piece of shit, but now he's got a chance to be better. And, like, I know it's supposed to be slow growth, but this is really just treated like a big positive. Like, hey, whatever, he got this slave girl, and, you know, she was miserable and on death's door anyway, so it's good. It's like, no, it's not.
Everyone's saying Redo of Healer is 1 out of 10 from start to finish. It's so much worse.
It's a made-up story. So this is a funny, weird thing. There were some people who were defending this because they're like, "How dare you ascribe morals to fantasy?" I don't, but I do think it says something about you, whatever you fantasize about. And it probably informs the way that you behave in other aspects of your life, depending on what you fantasize about.
Oh my god. I fantasize about being stepped on by women. And that happens to me.
It may be that the anime with the themes of, like, becoming a better person has to be written by someone who knows how to be a better person. Like, somebody who understands... Like, part of being a functional member of society is, like, making a deliberate choice to not be an indulgent weirdo. And so to make a show where simultaneous... It's a having your cake and eating it too situation, like Oshi no Ko. It's like, we want to keep all the fetishistic stuff that is enticing and you know, makes otaku like otaku media. But the story is supposed to be about how you're not being a creep otaku, how you're totally a good guy now.
Someone in the chat said, Mushoku Tensei isn't explicitly a redemption arc, and you're wrong. It actually is.
It is very explicitly a redemption arc.
The show opens with a 35-year-old NEET dying by saving children and realizing, oh, I've wasted all of my life. I need to, if only I could do it better. And then he gets another life and he's like, I'm going to do it better. So if you think it's not explicitly about being a better person.
He very much says in episode 2, like, that this is the purpose of the show. Is like I mean, the second episode was entirely about him crossing the threshold of leaving his house. Like, in his past life, he'd been so traumatized he wouldn't leave. Now he can leave. And then he has to work on the sex angle. He doesn't really understand boundaries. He doesn't understand how to communicate with people of a different gender. But as the years go on and he has female friends, he kind of gets past that stuff. But then he gets this, you know, this big betrayal to his ego that causes him to have this erectile dysfunction, and now we're in the erectile dysfunction arc.
Weird arc. I mean,
it's a weird arc because it's not about him. Like, if the key to fixing his erectile dysfunction somehow was being a better person, we'd still be in the same show. But like,
I'll tell you right now, and I don't know this necessarily. The key to him fixing his ED is Shilfiette saying, "Hey, I'm Shilfiette."
Yeah, no, that's frustrating in and of itself. I guess we'll get to that next. Sylphie's so excited about their fucking slave. She's the worst. Oh yeah, they're naming her in this scene.
Well, because, you know, dwarves don't get given names until they turn 7 or something.
Yeah. So, yeah, the next episode, she's teaching him how to make figures, or I guess that's how the episode ends. That's right, we're going to talk about the next episode separately. Oh no, that means I'm going to have to go back to the Mushoku Tensei headspace after we talk about Monster. this was a pretty rough episode to watch. And it's not that I'm, like, super offended on, like, a personal level. The show is fucking boring.
Yeah.
It is unfucking believably boring. Like, now it's a high school show on top of everything else. So, if it wasn't bad enough that it's a fucking generic isekai power fantasy, now it's also a generic isekai fucking
Literally
high school.
everyone in the chat said, skip to the next episode and then talk about Monster.
Okay, we could do that. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the bathroom first. Bert, do you have any parting thoughts on this one?
I mean, no. I didn't like the show when you told me we were going to review it and that I had to watch the rest of the first season. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'm being unfair to this show, you know? Maybe I just wasn't in the right place to appreciate exactly what's going on in this first season. And then I got into, like, the second half of the first season and even more into this season of the show, and I'm like, no, I was right. This show's bad. It's not interesting, not entertaining. The combat is cool, I guess, but we've gotten, like, 6 episodes with combat in them, maybe? I'm just not, like, because that's the other big defense I see of this show is, well, but the combat and magic system's just so interesting and complex and entertaining as, okay, you don't see that in the show. Almost ever. And Rudius doesn't need to say words to cast spells, so you have no fucking clue how the magic system works, aside from the fact that there are, like, levels to the spells.
Yeah, I remember people talking about how interesting the systems in this show were at some point, and I don't think they've really come up or been fucking relevant to the plot in a long while. God damn, dude, these 2 episodes, we're just gonna go into the other one, I guess, because it's almost, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that he bought a child slave in this episode, the other one would be worse. It's kind of hard to top the other, you know, it's kind of hard to top the child slave thing, but this show is looking for a way. It's really trying.
I'm an alcoholic in honor of my father.
Okay, here we go.
That's a joke. My dad is not an alcoholic.
Was that like a tweet?
Yeah, that was a tweet. I just thought it was cute.
All right. So the next episode, it opens with...
Oh, your misery... Sorry, I'll stop doing it.
Sylphie is...
going through her daily routine, which is the same as Rudius's daily routine. And I only know this for sure because at the end of her explaining her daily routine, she says something to the effect of, I'm sure if Rudy was here, this is what he would be doing.
And then we see him, like, running through the
background. Yes, and he like, runs through the... It's cute. There's the other thing, too, of it time skips back, which I don't think this show has done before. And it doesn't explain that it is time skipped back to before when they really met each other, because she knows that's Rudius.
Right.
She's, like, wishing he was here.
Yeah, the structure is fucking stupid. They just wanted to do this little poetry. It's like they rhyme, parallelism, fucking George Lucas horse shit, where she does the same thing he did in the other episode. I really want an episode of anime to open with something happening. Like, the best possible opening to an episode.
Like in K. Actually, K is a really good example of an anime opening with something happening. Because K starts off with a full-on fucking fight between 2 huge factions in a really cool way, and it's very colorful and it's fun. And they explain what the fuck is going on, so you know what the fuck is going on. K is the best anime.
The episodes, 2 episodes in a row open up with, like, and here's my daily routine, and I'm like, we're 3 seasons into this show! 3 seasons! This is episode 1 stuff in any other show. Any show. You establish the character's daily routine, we're set. And, like, sometimes you can have a time skip and reestablish the routine, but this show has done that 5 fucking times. There's a bunch of time skips. We always reset to, and here's how my lifestyle is now. I don't care, you're not interesting. Nothing you're doing is interesting. The characters are fucking around. He's doing research into teleportation to figure out how it happened, I guess, but all the information's forbidden, so he's not making any progress. It's just relationship drama with him and Sylphie, who he doesn't realize is Sylphie.
So the same person who said it's not a redemption arc is arguing that it is a redemption arc, or that it is not a redemption arc. When people characterize this show as a redemption arc, they always point to the subtitle at the end of episode 1 where Rudius almost says it as verbatim proof. But people are misunderstanding the implications of get serious about living. No, he's...
Hold on, he continues. He doesn't mean living to mean get a job, become a salaryman, be an adult, and make Abe proud.
He couldn't do any of that.
All the normies who say it, that this time around he's going to touch grass, that's it. Yeah, he's not...
So, hey, spoiler alert for all of you dumbass fuckheads who spend all of your time watching anime and not going outside. Most of life, you should just go outside and touch grass. Enjoy your life. Like, It's not all cartoons. And, I'm sorry for calling anime cartoons. I know that's kind of a controversial thing to do.
Not really.
But they are cartoons. You're wasting your life. As much as you'd be wasting your life just sitting around watching Family Guy all of the goddamn time. Go outside. Do things. Meet people. Stop sitting around and identifying with fucking Rudius.
If you identify with Rudius, you need help that this show can't give you, is the problem. It's written by somebody who is Rudius, trying to write their way out of being Rudius without knowing how you would do that, because you are him. Like, again, it's an issue of if this show was... It just feels like it lacks self-awareness of, like, how one would be respectable or interesting. And, like, if other characters find themselves liking Rudius while he's being this terrible person, it just makes the show unbelievable. Like, again, I get that it's like, an escapist fantasy, but, like, the fantasy is, oh, I could still be, like, the same stupid douchebag I am, but, like... if I happen to be in the right place at the right time a few times, then, like, people will like me, or, for no reason, lust after the... It's just... Well, this episode really just gets, honestly, so much worse. I don't know. I'm, like, trying to argue from a good faith position about a show that I don't think deserves it, especially based on this episode. Yeah, so basically Sylphie's trying to figure out what she wants from her relationship with Rudius. Thinking about him makes her horny. She's embarrassed about it. I'm not really sure why she's keeping it a secret from him. Maybe she's just testing the waters. It's a little unclear. Rudius is clearly falling for Fitz and, like, confused, because he's like, why is a man making me hard? Like, all these things I'm doing with women aren't curing my ED, but why Fitz? But, like, Fitz isn't a man, so none of this is not interesting drama. We already know it's Sylphie. We already know if she just said it, they would just fuck.
But also, this is how we know Rudius isn't straight. Because if he was straight, anything that makes him hard would be a woman. That's a joke.
So... here's the child slave being taught. Alright, where this episode really starts happening, because at first they're just daily life bullshit, who cares?
The two beast girls, the niece of Ghislaine, and then there's a dog girl whose name is mentioned, but I don't remember, are bullying Zenobu. They crushed his figure.
Yes, so it turns out that at some point, the dog and cat girl broke the Roxy figure that Zenoba had been given by Rudius. Rudius is so incredibly upset about this that he's like, we need to go seek vengeance now. We must defeat this cat and dog girl. So they meet in the courtyard, they have a confrontation, it quickly escalates to violence. This is probably the most fun fight scene in the season so far, because most of it was just, like, nothing. But in this one, like, he stomps on the girl's tits, and that was fun. So there was, like, some decent animation here. But the result of this fight, this is where stuff really gets out of hand.
Who do you think goes about being isekai'd better? Rudius or the main character from Kamikatsu?
Kamikatsu.
Yeah, absolutely.
By far. Rudius is so incensed about these women having broken his figurine. That's literally all they did, by the way. That's all that happened in this scene, is that these girls broke the figurine. So he's getting his vengeance. So after beating them up, they tie them to chairs and gag them so that he can truly let them know the business. And while he's got them tied up and gagged, he's like, hey,
I'm gonna touch your boobs and see if I can fix my ED real quick.
what if I just groped you? You know, see what happens. See if it moves.
And then
So he does.
Fitz is like, what was that about? And Rudy says...
Fitz is not in the room when this happens.
Oh.
That's a little... So this is...
He mentions it to her, right?
This is nuts. He's tied up the two girls with Zenoba. They're like, you know, laying in on them like, you did this unspeakable thing by breaking my figurines. This is after he's just beaten them up, tied them up, and molested them. And he's letting them know, I did all of this because you broke my Roxy figurine, and Roxy's the most important person in the world.
She is the goddess of fertility.
So how dare you? Then he just sort of leaves with the girls tied up in his room to go hang out with Fritz. And while they're talking, he tells her that these girls are in the room, and Fritz is like, what? You've got girls tied up in your room? And he's like,
What's going on there?
he's like, yeah, but I didn't do anything sexual to them,
I just
you know?
grabbed their
I
boobs.
just touched their tits. But not in like a I wanted to fuck way. What? Why did you say any of those words? What the fuck? And Fitz is just like, okay. And then they both go to the room where the girls are tied up. The girls have pissed themselves and are starving.
That was... So I get the starving, but, like, let him use the bathroom.
They were tied up. He just left.
Where was Zenoba?
So they untie the girls, and rather than being like upset with their treatment, they've kind of, I guess, been tamed because they're beast girls.
Then they kind of become like, they call him like boss or something.
They start calling him boss and being really obedient and just like not even upset about anything that just happened. Fitz cleans their underwear and then draws these markings on their faces and says there's a special Beastman incantation that if I say it, those will permanently tattoo on your face. And I'll do that if you don't listen to Rudius anytime in the next day.
And you got to keep that on.
Why? Why did Sylphie feel justified in helping double down on this? What is in this for her? Did she just not like them? She just anybody who pisses off Rudius is automatically my enemy. She had no problems with Rudius's reasoning or anything. Just no conversation. Just, hey, you know what? I'm gonna help you double down. Yeah, fuck these idiot girls. And then she even tells Rudius, like, yeah, the whole incantation thing's a lie. I just want to draw on their faces. It's like, wow, maybe Sylphie's just a bitch. Like, maybe she's just evil. She loves slaves. So, and then the dog and cat girl are like just, like the dog girl says something to Rudius like, oh, and you can have my sister's tits anytime you want. I don't care, or whatever, the other girl's tits. This was just fucking, this was a lot. Again, plot? Story? Is there a story here? Does this anime have a story? What happened in these last two episodes? He bought a slave, and he molested a cat girl. What a riveting tale, this Mushoku Tensei. What a fucking yarn. What a
redemption arc.
What an epic redemption arc. What a fun show. What does anybody get out of this? What is the appeal of this show?
I already had a mean screed towards people who spend all their time watching anime. I don't know if I should go into the people who get anything out of this.
Oh, man. I just, there's nothing for me here. There is nothing for me here. And I thought that when I started the show, and I think it really was just Rugier that tricked me. Like the handsome
Yeah, he was
green
cool.
man. He was
cool.
fun. He was good looking. Their interactions were good. He made the show violent and fun and cool. And then as soon as he was gone, it just fucking flatlined.
M has a really good line. Is Rudy a relatable character for Mushoku Tensei fans? Because if so, I don't trust any of them. Correct.
No, that's exactly. Well, I feel that way about a lot of anime main
Yeah, like
characters,
anyone who likes
frankly.
Oshinoko.
I
If
mean,
you identify with Aqua, you're wrong.
I think a lot of people project onto isekai protagonists, especially if they're portrayed as just generic otaku. Like, hey, I like anime and I don't leave my room. And the audience goes, hey, I don't like anime and I don't leave my room. We're the same, you know? And then from there, they just kind of accept whatever wacky, fun, sexy things are happening. Oh, I saw a cute cat girl. Oh, there was an action scene. Oh, remember the part where you sniffed the panties? That was funny. I don't know. I don't fucking get it.
Can we go back to a show that I want to talk about before I start just playing Armored Core again?
Great mental cleanse after the hell that was the Mushoku Tensei erectile dysfunction arc.
Well, and that's not even over yet. We're still there.
I just know that, like, for decades, people are going to be asking me, like, what's one of the most, like, frustrating, like, things you can remember from an anime? And I'm just going to be like, the fucking erectile dysfunction arc from Mushoku Tensei. I just love that that's, like, what it is. Literally, it is a whole arc of ED. Good lord.
Oh my god.
Everything else is good, though.
We watched it.
We did it. We watched anime.
anime.
Everybody, let me remind you that our bonus episodes on Bocchi the Rock, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, and Keep Your Hands Off the Azoken are all available for $5 plus backers on Patreon and Backed.by. You can find links to those in the descriptions. I will try to get all of these episodes that have been backlogged at this point edited. We're like 4 weeks behind on edited podcasts, maybe even 5. So there's a lot of that to do. I also still want to do the rest of the compilations of shows from the previous season. Maybe even make some shorts for this channel. Look, we're off work for a little bit, so some of that stuff might be possible.
Did you mention manga? We read all the manga.
Yes, we read all the manga. We will soon be launching a $15, but for sure by the time this episode is edited, there will be a $15 tier on our Patreon called We Read Manga, where twice a month we will be doing a manga podcast. We've read first volumes of Berserk, Vinland Saga, JoJo Part 5, 7, I mean. JoJo Part 7, Land of the Lustrous, and Vagabond. And we'll be talking about all those in that podcast. So, you know, if you're hearing this, go look at the Patreon, see if the tier exists yet, unless you're literally here in the live video or shortly thereafter. Any other housekeeping that needs to be mentioned? I'm so glad that you've all been patient with us and not beaten down the doors and demanded that we be on time. I'm really sorry we've been so late. I don't apologize for the gayness, but the lateness is a little unacceptable. So yeah, we're gonna keep a fucking closer eye on that. Thanks everybody. Anime forever. Yay, we did it. All right. Goodbye.